We're delighted to have him here for this very special day. Please help me welcome Dr. Trott.
President Kelleher, members of the Board of Trustees, faculty, parents, family, friends, and the class of 2019. Congratulations on your graduation, and thank you for allowing me the honor to be part of it. My wife gave me some good advice a few years ago while I was preparing a commencement address. She told me, now remember, you are the only person standing between those students and their diplomas, so keep it short. So with that in mind, and apologies to David Letterman, I plan to share with you my top 10 lessons from 30 years in business and politics. Number 10, no surprise, but business and politics are very different occupations. For example, there are some similarities, however. For example, it's probably not a good idea to shut down the government or your business. And I believe the advice that Speaker John Boehner gave to me when I first arrived in DC is true in politics and business. If you do the right thing, it usually works out. I also think in business as in politics, you can't worry about the haters. Just go out and do your best. But there are certainly some stark differences between business and politics. In business, for example, you would never hear the terms like revenue neutral. It's either an expense or revenue. In politics, when the whip checks you to see how you're going to vote, you're allowed to say undecided. I'm sure you were all taught in your management classes you can't be successful in business if you're undecided. The most significant difference, however, between business and politics is many of my colleagues in Congress view their work as a zero-sum game. If I win, someone must lose. When I was competing for a big contract with Bank of America or Fannie Mae, I was always more focused on emphasizing the strengths of my company than defeating an opponent. Number 9, be confident but humble. I wish our leaders in Washington could figure this out. A New York Times article recently concluded that the best bosses are humble. I understand this. If you're humble, you're probably empathetic. You probably attract and keep good people. If you're a narcissist, you not only empower your haters, but also crush the spirit of your team. Perhaps this is one of the reasons why the West Wing and the Cabinet are revolving doors. There's another benefit from being humble. You are more likely to learn from your mistakes. You are not so full of yourself that you think you have it all figured out. Jack Kennedy once said that no one is prepared to be president, and the key to becoming a good president is to be able to learn from your mistakes. This is true whether you're president of our country or president of a company. Kennedy went on to tell his closest advisors that the mistakes he made during the Bay of Pigs crisis helped him resolve the Cuban Missile Crisis. I'm in the middle of a great book at the moment, Walk with Destiny. It's about Churchill and how his mistakes helped him become a great leader. Toward the end of my father's life, we were talking about someone, I forget whom, and we were criticizing the person. And my father paused and smiled and said somewhat sarcastically, "Well, kiddo, we're just lucky we have it all figured out." My dad was a humble man who taught me how important it is to listen and learn from everyone. Number 8, compromise and forbearance are important whether we're talking about business or politics or marriage. There was an article a while back, I think it was in the Post, that claimed if our great republic is going to work well, we need compromise and forbearance. Compromise I completely understand. Reagan was the standard in this regard. He had very little in common with Speaker Tip O'Neill, but every week the two of them met for lunch, and through a series of compromises, got a lot done for our country. We don't see much of that in Washington today. In fact, Trump and Pelosi can't even be in the same room together. I understand the importance of compromise. Forbearance, however, surprised me a little. Essentially, the article explained that you cannot use all of your power at your disposal to crush or destroy an opponent. At the moment, we are all watching the consequence of such behavior through the partisan battles in D.C. Let me digress for just a moment. For all of you that are particularly disheartened by Washington these days, a newspaper once editorialized that if the United States were to elect this person, murder, robbery, rape, adultery, and incest will be openly taught and practiced. The candidate was Thomas Jefferson. The point is, politics has always been a blood sport. Don't let the acrimony of today bother you too much. But back to forbearance. Failure to forbear would not only undermine our great republic, but also complicate your business goals. Employees may not want to work for your company, or it might be more difficult to unite your team, or maybe you'll create enemies unnecessarily. And the consequence of all this may very well be stalemate. I have a good friend in Congress, John Delaney. He's a congressman from Maryland. He's running for president. You should check him out. He's a Democrat. I'm a Republican. But he's a good guy, and he has an expression that I think is true. He likes to say, the cost of doing nothing is not always nothing. Compromise and forbearance are important leadership qualities. Number 7, confront your deficiencies. If you're an introvert, take a Dale Carnegie class. If you're a marketing genius, take a class on how to analyze a P&L or figure out what makes up EBITDA. I wish I had followed this advice. When I got ready to sell my first company, all I knew about accounting and EBITDA was that EBITDA was good. In politics, one of my many deficiencies were guns. I'm not a gun guy, but many of my constituents feel very strongly about their Second Amendment rights. To me, I always thought the Second Amendment was about protecting the colonies from another attack by King George and the Redcoats, not the right of someone to own a semi-automatic weapon. My point is, I had to educate myself. I'm not sure the NRA changed my mind, but at least I was able to better discuss the issue with my constituents. Confront your deficiencies. It will make you a better boss, spouse, and congressperson should you ever decide to run. Number 6, stick to what you know. Few among us can be Roger Penske or Warren Buffett. You're much safer sticking to what you know. I took my parents' business from 6 to 1,800 employees by growing our core operations and vertically integrating businesses. Whether it was the practice of law, title insurance, legal newspapers, software, commercial real estate, or the residential brokerage business, revenue was always somehow tied to a real estate transaction. It really bugged me to pay someone else for something we could do, so each quarter I had our CFO give me a list of all our vendors, and we systematically started and vertically integrated businesses that not only provided us with better service, but created great opportunities and careers for our employees. I always wanted to own an Italian restaurant, but I know it would be a failure. Number 5, you need to be a little paranoid. There's a great book, Only the Paranoid Survive. There's some truth in that. When I decided to run for Congress, I met Mayor Duggan for lunch, and he told me, here's what you need to worry about. You're going to be talking to a good friend, and unknowingly you're going to be being recorded, and it's going to hurt your campaign. And I thought to myself, yikes, what kind of swamp am I crawling into? In business, I always thought that last year had to be our best year ever. How could we ever do better? Our business grew over year for 28 years, so some of my worrying was probably unnecessary, but there's no doubt that being paranoid kept me motivated. Number 4, you can't control everything, so accept it. Whether it's trade policy or the economy, you can't control it. All you can try and do is be like Gretzky or Yzerman and anticipate where the puck's going to be. Know, for example, that in 2030, the economies of China and India will both be larger than the United States. What does this mean for your business? I got elected to Congress when Thaddeus McCotter imploded. He turned in fraudulent petition signatures and got kicked off the ballot. I could not have anticipated his meltdown. I couldn't have beaten McCotter in 2012. I probably couldn't have beaten him ever, but I was able to easily beat his successor in 2014. While you can't control everything, I do agree with what Bobby Kennedy said, which is, good luck you make, bad luck you endure. Although I must admit the failure to call pass interference against the Rams last Sunday is a bit hard to endure. Number 3, do what you enjoy. Most commencement speeches are basically follow your dreams, follow your passion, help others. All great ideas, but my suggestion is just a little different. Do what you enjoy. You'll be good at it, and indirectly or directly, you'll help others. Maybe you'll be so successful that you can help others through philanthropy. Maybe you'll help others by just creating a great company. Or maybe you'll help others by being a great boss and mentor to your subordinates. If you are confused about how you can help others, I suggest you read Robin Sharma's book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. It's a great book and starting point for a life of service. Number 2, can you handle, the good thing about doing a top 10 is you all know at some point I'm going to run out of the top 10 and the speech will be over. Number 2, can you handle the seasons of your life? I'm showing my age a little bit, but in 1975, Fleetwood Mac recorded a song called Landslide. It's a great song. And there's a line in the song, can I handle the seasons of my life? The point is, there's a time and place for everything. If you're 40 years old and you still think you can be the next Taylor Swift, then maybe you're not navigating the seasons of your life too well. When I first decided to run for Congress, a good friend of mine gave me a contribution for my campaign. And he said, Dave, you can use this for your campaign, or you can use this to get counseling. I have no idea why you're doing this at this point in your life. I have no regrets. It was certainly an interesting experience and a privilege to serve in Congress. But it is worth remembering that dreams are great, but every now and then you need to consider where you are on your life's journey. And number 1, I give this advice at all commencement exercises, regardless of your age, no matter how busy or accomplished or important you may be. If you're lucky enough to be able to do so, please call your mother every Sunday. Your dad would love to hear from you, assuming it's not the middle of the NFL playoffs, but call your mother. She'll appreciate it, and for some inexplicable reason, you'll be a better person. Again, I congratulate all of the graduates and their families. I hope a few of my lessons have given you something to think about. I wish you happiness, good health, and God's grace. Thank you.